Hi angels, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be hitting you with part 4 of the Let's Talk About series. So if you hadn't already guessed by the title, today we're going to be talking about anxiety. So anxiety is actually really common, and I myself do actually suffer with anxiety. So when you guys started asking for me to cover this subject, I was quite happy because I definitely felt like it was an area which I know quite a bit about from personal experience. So I'm guessing that if you're watching this video, you've either suffered with anxiety before, you think that you might be suffering with anxiety, or I'm guessing that you know someone who does have anxiety. So if you think this video is for you, then just make sure that you carry on watching. But before we carry on, if you go and hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on, I upload twice a week, every week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 6 PM. So yeah, now that I've plugged my channel, let's just get into the video. So I reckon that the best place to start with this is what actually is anxiety. So unlike stress and worry, anxiety is a feeling that like constantly persists and constantly keeps coming back, whether or not you know what the cause of that worry is. So it's perfectly normal to feel anxious in like really high stress situations. So for example, if you've got a job interview or you're meant to be sitting an exam, it is more than normal to feel anxious in those sort of situations. But it's when anxiety starts to creep up on you and starts to appear in your everyday life in situations which aren't particularly high stress, but you feel anxious anyway. And if you do feel like that, it is perfectly possible that you may have an anxiety disorder. Now there's honestly so many different types of anxiety, and I just would not have the time to go through each and every type of it with you now. So I'm going to be speaking generally about anxiety today, just because I feel like that's the fairest way to cover and touch on how each of you guys might be feeling. But if you guys do want to learn a little bit more about the different types of anxiety disorders, then I'm going to be leaving the link in the description box down below for you, so that you can go and have a little bit of a read up on the different types of anxiety disorders. So when I first started feeling anxious and getting anxious thoughts and feelings, I guess one of the first things that I actually wanted to know was, why is this happening? What causes anxiety? Why do I feel like this? And honestly, it's usually a combination of things which can lead to you experiencing anxiety. So a lot of the time we can develop anxiety as a result of like really stressful things that happen in our life. You know, people can definitely learn to be anxious because of their life events. Like for example, if someone's cheated on by their partner in a relationship, you know, entering into a new relationship, they might be that little bit more scared because they've been damaged by that life event, by being cheated on. Another thing that can lead to you feeling anxious is your thinking style. If I'm honest with you, a lot of people, including myself, like I'm going to put it out there, I'm very, very guilty of this. A lot of people have very damaging thinking styles. So by this I mean that the way that you think might actually be one of the reasons why you so often feel anxious. I know that sounds absolutely horrible, and I am by no means saying that if you are suffering with anxiety that you should blame yourself, because absolutely not. But I just feel like it's really important to establish if you have a damaging way of thinking which potentially leads you to look at things in a negative way. You know, if you're constantly expecting or waiting for something bad to happen, like you're always going to feel on edge. Being like this could be a huge part of the reason why you constantly feel so on edge and anxious. So another one is biological reasons. Anxiety has definitely been proved to happen for biological reasons. So in other words, if there's someone in your family that is a very anxious person or is prone to feeling anxious, then there is an increased chance that you too will have like a similar problem with anxiety. But that's definitely not always the case, it just can be the case. So if you're watching this to find out what steps that you can take to reduce your feelings of anxiety, then this is the section for you. So the first thing is actually understanding anxiety. So I've always found that with any illness, it's beneficial to educate yourself about it. I personally feel that the more that you know about something, the more that you understand something, the less reason you have to be scared of it. So the main issue that I've always had anxiety wise is being able to overcome like unhelpful thoughts that I have. I personally am very much the type of person that allows their thoughts to impact their mood quite a lot, which definitely isn't a good thing, but it's definitely something that I'm working on. And if you are thinking about things in an unhelpful way, it's really important that we establish that now. So I'm going to give you a few examples of unhelpful thinking. I want to show you what I would consider unhelpful thinking. So the first one is trying to be a mind reader and making assumptions about what people think. You know, for example, like, oh, he doesn't like me because they've looked at you in a certain way, when realistically you don't know what they're thinking. Like, you don't know why they've looked at you like that, and realistically there's not a lot of chance that you ever really will know. So let it be, and don't try and guess what people are thinking of you. Another example of unhelpful thinking is what if statements. You know, so what if I don't make any friends when I start my new job? What if my date goes badly? What if statements do not help anyone. And honestly, by thinking what if, it makes us more likely to avoid the things that we want to do, because we end up creating like this fear that something bad is going to happen. You know, if you're sat there thinking, what if my date doesn't like me? By thinking that, you're creating a fear, and you're feeding that fear by asking yourself questions that you know that you don't have the answer to. Another really unhelpful way of thinking is catastrophizing. So my therapist recently introduced me to this word. For any of you guys who don't know, I now speak to a counsellor weekly about my skin condition, and she's really helping me with the mental effects of my skin condition. And this term catastrophizing is something that she brought up with me a few weeks ago, and I definitely thought that it was important to include it in this. So anxious people prone to anxiety are really good at catastrophizing when they're worried about something. And to catastrophize a situation means that because you're feeling anxious, you then blow the situation out of proportion, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be making that situation worse by giving it the power to be a catastrophe. Another unhelpful way to think is, as people, we often imagine like how things should be or how things would be if they were perfect, and sometimes we allow ourselves to fantasize about how things should be rather than just accepting things for how they are. Like, for example, if you're feeling anxious, you know, and in your head you're telling yourself, oh my god, I shouldn't be feeling anxious, or I shouldn't be feeling scared. Like, when we do this and when we tell ourselves that we shouldn't be doing this or we shouldn't be doing that, we just add extra pressure to ourselves, which in turn is going to actually create a lot more anxiety. Another unhelpful way of thinking is labeling. So do you guys ever give yourself negative labels? Like, you do something wrong and you'll be like, oh, I'm useless, or you cry about something silly and you're like, oh, I'm pathetic. Why do we do that? Like, would we ever speak to someone else like that? If that's what you're telling yourself that you're gonna be, that is what you're gonna be. Like, giving yourself labels, negative labels, like, oh, you're pathetic, oh, you're useless, they can really change how we see ourselves, and it can really impact our levels of anxiety, because obviously the lower we feel about ourselves, the lower we may feel all round. So a lot of what I'm sharing with you guys today are a lot of things that I've learned from books that I've read, and also some of these things I have picked up from my psychologist. So I have only very recently started seeing a professional for my mental health. I had to look for coping strategies through books and through online sources because I wasn't able to get the professional help straight away. And by reading these books and looking online, it did actually help me to develop coping strategies to help me get through the unhelpful thoughts that I was having. So I want to help you guys to understand how you can oppose an unhelpful thought. The first step that I always take is actually trying to address the thought head on. Ask yourself, if you're in a court of law, what evidence would you put forward to contradict this unhelpful thought? If you had to prove that this unhelpful thought was wrong, what argument would you put forward for it? Can I find a positive to this situation? Can I find something good that has potentially come from this? Now, angels, don't get me wrong, I completely understand that sitting there and asking yourself questions isn't always going to work, and that's fine. If it doesn't work, move past it. There's so many more things that you can try. So the next thing that I would say is really important is letting yourself relax and making sure that you've got time to yourself, because stress and worry can build up really quickly if you ignore it. But if you take time for yourself to unwind and to take some time out to do things that make you happy, it will help you to de-stress and loosen up simply from the fact that you're doing something that brings you joy. So for me, when I'm feeling anxious, I like to whack on a playlist and go for a drive, or sometimes I'll read a book which I know is positive, I know it's written in a positive way. Write a list of things that you like to do which make you happy. You know, do you like to draw? Do you have a certain friend that makes you cry with laughter? Does having a bath help you unwind? I mean, I fucking hate baths, but for some people they're actually meant to be relaxing. I know, weird. Write a list of all of the things that help you to calm your shit down and try to use it the next time that you're feeling anxious. So I guess that you could kind of say that this is similar to relaxation, but distraction can be very, very effective sometimes. It's gonna sound a little bit weird, but just hear me out, hear me out. So before I was getting counselling, I started doing quite a lot of self-help exercises, and they were ones designed to try and help me to quieten my thoughts. So one thing that I found massively useful is that I used to put together a playlist of literally the most lit songs at the time. You know, all the songs that make you want to twerk in your bedroom mirror, all of the songs that give you that happy feeling. I would double headphone that shit and I would focus on learning the words. You can really quickly get absorbed in what a good artist is saying, like in a good song. And obviously this isn't going to work with sad songs. Definitely don't start building a heartbreak playlist and learning the words to those songs, because you will feel worse, you will. You want to focus on positive sounds and positive words. Focus on the words and get so involved with the music that you feel empowered. Another good thing to do is try to list all of the things in your life that you're grateful for. You know, and I mean everything. You know, right from having a loving family all the way up to having a comfy bed. Write it all down. All of the things that you would be sad without, write them down. And when you get to the end of this list, you will honestly be so surprised how many things that you've got on the list. And it kind of makes you aware of all of the things that you kind of take for granted in day-to-day life. You know, and spending your time feeling anxious about all of the things that are going wrong, when really it's not right to do that without looking at the things that are also going right. So another thing that I find really helpful is to visualize. So some people might not connect with this, and that's absolutely fine. Like, I feel like for this one to work, you have to have a belief that you can bring good things to your life by thinking them. So obviously if you don't believe that, then this one's going to be a little bit harder for you. But if you are open to that way of thinking, then visualizing can be absolutely invaluable when you're trying to distract yourself from your feelings of anxiety. Take time to visualize where you want to be. Visualize a happy, confident and completely at peace version of yourself. Visualize being in a location that makes you happy. Visualize yourself around people that make you happy. People that make you feel worthy and people that make you feel appreciated. If it's done right, visualizing will help you to reduce your feelings of anxiety, because it will replace those feelings of anxiety with feelings of motivation and determination to get yourself to those places that you're visualizing yourself to be in. And I believe that if you believe that you can visualize things and bring them to your life just by thinking them, then it will happen. Also, a major key, controlled breathing. It sounds so dumb and so psychologist, right? But seriously, I never learned the importance of taking deep and steady breaths until I got my allergy and until I started to experience like regular pain and regular like bouts of anxiety. Calming your breathing is absolutely essential to calming yourself down. You know, it's one of the first steps that you should always take if you're feeling stressed, is try to control your breathing. Naturally, when you're distressed, your breathing can get quicker, but the quicker that your breathing gets and the more that you struggle for breath in a situation where you're panicking, you know, you're allowing your breathing to get out of hand, and that will make you feel more anxious than if you try to compose yourself and try to slow it down and control the breathing. It will, whether you want it to or not, it will calm you down. Another one is avoidance. By this, I mean please don't let your anxiety control your body. It is not in control. If you're anxious about other people, please don't lock yourself away from other people, because it's never going to give you the opportunity to practice how to deal with these situations that you find difficult. Being around people will never get easier for you unless you make yourself be around people. Avoiding an issue doesn't make it go away, and when you suffer with anxiety, it's very easy to convince yourself that it will go away if you just ignore it. You know, I'm not saying don't ever avoid anything ever again, because that is just unrealistic and it would be hypocritical of me, but try to reduce it. Write a list of all of the things that you've been avoiding. Like for me, I personally avoid meeting up with people who I haven't seen for a long time. So if, for example, I haven't seen someone since I became ill, and I start to worry that I may be a different person now than the person that they knew before I was ill, and it's something that I'm working on. I'm still definitely not perfect in that area, but by isolating myself from my friends, I was taking away the opportunity for them to learn more about me and to learn more how to deal with me and the way that I am now. You know, by isolating myself and by not putting myself in that situation, it just makes that situation more scary for me. And honestly, the list for me could go on and on and on, and I know that you guys are going to come up with loads of things that you personally avoid. But after you've put together this list, just try to slowly confront each situation. You know, you might try and tackle one thing per week, you might try and tackle one thing per month, whatever, you know. And even though at the beginning, by pushing yourself to do things that maybe you would avoid usually because of your anxiety, like at first your anxiety is going to be sky high, like you are going to be stressed, but I promise the more you work on it, the more the anxiety levels are going to keep coming down. The more you familiarize yourself with a situation that makes you anxious and makes you uncomfortable, slowly your fear of it and your anxiety around it will be broken down. So in my personal situation, I found these things to be really helpful. Like I said at the beginning, it's not always going to work for you, and it definitely might take some time and some practice and some rearranging to find how things work for you. But if you're familiar with anxiety and the way that it makes you feel, then I feel that it's definitely worth trying to eliminate the feelings that it brings. I really hope that some of you guys have been able to benefit from this video. Honestly, I really do hope that you guys can relate to this and that you found it helpful. Please don't forget to check out the links in the description box if you want to read a little bit more about anxiety. If you like this video or found it helpful at all, then please make sure that you click the like button down below and hit the subscribe button to join our beautiful, uplifting YouTube family. You know the drill, guys. Just leave what you want to talk about in the next episode down below in the comments and I'll get that done for you. Thanks again for watching, angels. I'll see you guys in the next video.